The longship creaked and groaned as it battled against the relentless North Atlantic waves. At the prow stood Floki Vilgerðarson, his wild hair whipping in the wind, eyes fixed on the horizon. The year was 868 AD, and Floki was on a mission to find the fabled island hidden in the mists of the north. "Land ho!" came a cry from the crow's nest, cutting through the howling wind. Floki's heart leapt. After weeks at sea, they had finally found it, the land that would come to be known as Iceland. As the ship drew closer to the shore, Floki could make out the rugged coastline dotted with black sand beaches and towering cliffs. Steam rose from hot springs, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. "Prepare to make landfall!" Floki shouted to his crew. The men bustled about, readying ropes and anchors. As they neared the shore, Floki released his 3 ravens, Hugin, Munin, and Gundel. The birds took flight, circling the ship before heading towards land. Floki smiled. The ravens had served him well on this journey, guiding him to this new world. As the longship's keel scraped against the volcanic sand, Floki was the first to leap ashore. He fell to his knees, scooping up a handful of the black sand and letting it run through his fingers. "We've done it," he whispered, a manic grin spreading across his face. "We've found it." The crew cheered, their voices echoing across the desolate landscape. But their jubilation was short-lived. As they began to explore their surroundings, they quickly realized that this new land was far from hospitable. The wind howled ceaselessly, and despite it being summer, the air held a biting chill. Floki led his men inland, searching for a suitable place to set up camp. They trudged through fields of sharp black rocks and steaming fumaroles, the landscape alien and forbidding. After hours of searching, they found a sheltered valley with a freshwater stream, a good place to make their temporary home. As the men set up camp, Floki wandered off alone, climbing a nearby hill to survey the land. From the summit, he could see for miles in every direction. The island seemed to stretch endlessly, a patchwork of black sand, green moss, and glittering ice. In the distance, a plume of smoke rose from what could only be a volcano. As Floki stood there, taking in the view, a raven landed on a rock beside him. It was Hugin, the largest of his 3 birds. The raven cocked its head, fixing Floki with its beady black eye. "What secrets does this land hold, my friend?" Floki murmured to the bird. As if in response, Hugin took flight, circling Floki's head 3 times before flying off towards the east. Floki watched the bird disappear into the distance, a sense of unease settling in his stomach. There was something about this place, something hidden, something powerful. Over the next few weeks, Floki and his men worked tirelessly to establish their camp. They built sturdy shelters from driftwood and sod, hunted the abundant bird life, and fished in the cold, rich waters. But as summer began to wane, Floki grew increasingly restless. The land seemed to be hiding something from him, a secret just beyond his grasp. One night, as Floki sat by the fire, lost in thought, he overheard 2 of his men talking in hushed tones. "Have you noticed the strange lights in the sky?" one whispered. "Aye," replied the other. "And the way the ground sometimes trembles beneath our feet. This is no ordinary land." Floki's ears perked up. He had noticed these things too, but had dismissed them as tricks of the mind. Now, hearing his men speak of it, he realized that there was indeed something unusual about this island. The next day, Floki announced that he would be embarking on a solo expedition to explore more of the island. His men protested, but Floki was adamant. "I must uncover the secrets of this land," he declared. "Wait for me here. If I do not return in 7 days, sail back to Norway and tell our people what we have found." With that, Floki set off, a pack on his back and his 3 ravens circling overhead. He traveled east, following the path Hugin had taken weeks before. The landscape became increasingly surreal as he journeyed inland. Steam vents hissed from cracks in the earth, and in some places the ground was hot to the touch. On the 3rd day of his journey, Floki came across a vast lake, its surface as still as a mirror. As he approached the shore, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, reflected in the calm waters, was not his own face, but that of an old man, weathered, scarred, with a long white beard. Floki stumbled back in shock, blinking rapidly. When he looked again, his own reflection had returned. Shaken, Floki made camp by the lake that night. As he sat by his small fire, he heard a soft cooing sound. Looking up, he saw Munin perched on a nearby rock. The raven seemed to be trying to tell him something. "What is it, my friend?" Floki asked. "What are you trying to show me?" Munin took flight, circling Floki's head before landing again. This time, when Floki looked at the bird, he saw not a raven, but a shimmering spectral figure. A woman, beautiful and terrible, with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. Floki Vilgerðarson, the apparition spoke, its voice like the whisper of wind through leaves. You have come far, seeking new lands and glory, but beware, this island holds power beyond your imagining. Floki fell to his knees, awestruck. What are you? He managed to stammer. I am Freyja, the figure replied. Goddess of love, beauty and prophecy. I have come to warn you, Floki. This land is not what it seems. It is alive, in a way you cannot understand. It will test you, change you, break you if you are not careful. But why? Floki asked. Why have the gods led me here if not to settle this land? Freyja's eyes softened. The gods work in mysterious ways, Floki. This land has a destiny, as do you, but be warned. The path ahead is fraught with danger. You must be strong, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. With that, the apparition faded, leaving Floki alone in the darkness. He spent a sleepless night, his mind reeling from the encounter. As dawn broke, he made a decision. He would continue his exploration, determined to uncover the true nature of this mysterious island. For the next 3 days, Floki traveled further inland. The landscape became increasingly bizarre. Fields of lava rock gave way to verdant valleys, hidden hot springs bubbled amidst ice-covered plains, and always there was the sense of being watched, of some greater presence just beyond the veil of perception. On the 7th day of his journey, Floki came across a sight that took his breath away. Before him stood a massive glacier, its blue-white surface glittering in the pale sunlight. As he approached, he noticed something strange. There seemed to be something moving within the ice. Cautiously, Floki drew closer. As he peered into the translucent surface, he gasped. Trapped within the ice were figures, human figures preserved perfectly as if frozen in time. Men, women, children, an entire community, their faces contorted in expressions of fear and anguish. Floki stumbled back, his mind reeling. What was this place? What tragedy had befallen these people? As he stood there, trying to make sense of what he was seeing, he heard a sound that chilled him to the bone, the cracking of ice. The glacier was moving, shifting before his very eyes. The figures within seemed to be stirring, their frozen limbs beginning to twitch and flex. Panic gripped Floki's heart. He turned to flee, but found his feet rooted to the spot. The ice was creeping up his legs, holding him in place. As the cold began to seep into his bones, Floki heard a voice. Not the gentle tones of Freyja, but something older, deeper, more primal. Floki Vilgerðarson, it rumbled, seeming to come from the very earth itself. You have come seeking a new home for your people. But this land is already claimed. We are the Jötnar, the giants of old, imprisoned here by Odin himself. For centuries we have slumbered, but your presence has awakened us. Floki's mind raced. The Jötnar, the ancient enemies of the gods, beings of immense power and cruelty. He had always thought them to be myths, stories told to frighten children. But here they were, awakening before his very eyes. What do you want from me? Floki managed to croak, his body now almost entirely encased in ice. The voice chuckled, a sound like grinding boulders. We want freedom, little human, and you will be the key to our liberation. Your people will come, seeking you. They will settle this land, build their homes and their temples, and with each passing year, with each new generation, the seal that binds us will weaken. And when the time is right, we will rise again. Floki wanted to scream, to warn his people of the danger, but he could feel his consciousness slipping away as the ice consumed him. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was his 3 ravens, Hugin, Munin and Gundel, circling overhead, their cries lost in the howling wind. Centuries passed. The land that Floki had discovered became known as Iceland, settled by Norse and Celtic peoples. They built their farms and their villages, raised their families, and told stories of the wild-eyed explorer who had first found this harsh but beautiful land. In time, Floki became a figure of legend. Some said he had returned to Norway bitter and disillusioned. Others claimed he had stayed in Iceland, living out his days as a hermit in the wilderness. Few knew the truth of his fate, but there were whispers, passed down through generations, tales of strange lights in the sky, of tremors that shook the earth, of voices carried on the wind. And always, there were the ravens, 3 of them, larger than any others, seen circling over glaciers and volcanoes. In the year 2024, a team of glaciologists made a startling discovery. Deep within a glacier in the heart of Iceland, they found a perfectly preserved body. A man, dressed in ancient Norse clothing. Initial carbon dating suggested the body was over 1,000 years old. As news of the discovery spread, experts from around the world flocked to Iceland. Historians, archaeologists, and geneticists all sought to unravel the mystery of the Iceman, as he came to be known. But as they worked to extract the body from its icy tomb, strange events began to occur. Tremors shook the excavation site, equipment malfunctioned inexplicably, and several team members reported vivid, troubling dreams. And always there were the ravens, 3 of them, watching from nearby rocks, their eyes glinting with an intelligence that seemed almost human. As the body was finally freed from the ice, one of the researchers noticed something clutched in its hand. Carefully, they pried the frozen fingers open to reveal a small stone tablet covered in ancient runes. As they worked to decipher the message, a chill ran down their spines. For there, etched in stone over 1,000 years ago, was a warning. To those who find me, heed my words. I am Floki Vilgerðarson, discoverer of this land, but I am also its prisoner and its guardian. Beneath the ice and fire of this island sleeps an ancient evil. With each passing year, with each new life that takes root in this soil, it grows stronger. I have sacrificed myself to keep it at bay, but I fear it may not be enough. Be vigilant, for the day of awakening draws near. The Jötnar stir in their icy prison. May the gods have mercy on us all. As the researchers stared at each other in stunned silence, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. In the distance, a glacier groaned and shifted, and for a moment those present could have sworn they saw something moving within the ice, something large and ancient and terribly, terribly alive. And high above, 3 ravens took flight, their cries echoing across the vast, unforgiving landscape of Iceland, a land of fire and ice, of beauty and terror, of secrets waiting to be uncovered. The saga of Floki, it seemed, was far from over.